Leave. Good morning, everyone. This is Vinodini from IST Academy. I will be the host for today's complimentary webinar. It gives me enormous pleasure to welcome you all here on behalf of IST Academy India Private Limited and PS Quality Certification Private Limited. IST Academy focusing on providing quality education, thereby developing skills and enhancing empowerment to professionals by narrowing the gap in expectations between industries and educational institutions globally. Now, IST is an established research and
Hello. Excuse me.
research and development institution, well supported by highly qualified, devoted, and experienced professionals focusing towards quality. In today's era of artificial intelligence and machine learning, we are adopting the following techniques in our training. We offer a wide spectrum of institutional oriented training programs from students oriented training, students placement training, NAAC awareness session, value added course in health science, engineering, and arts and science, IQAC training and faculty development program in various domains. Our mission. The mission of IST Academy is to serve the people of South Asia in creating, communicating, and preserving and applying knowledge, arts, and academic values, and in developing leaders and citizens who will challenge the present and enrich the future of our country. Our vision. Our vision of IST Academy to be the most globally recognized technical academy in South Asia. We strive to produce a highly employable graduates through our dedicated staffs who shall set global standards, making our students technical superior. Our aim is to provide top quality training to your staff, teaching skills that can be transferred realistically to the workplace. I would like to introduce our speaker, having a teaching experience of 30 years in the field of teaching and research. Currently working as a director of an arts and science college in Madurai. Work for the NAAC accreditation and reaccreditation of various colleges and created a digital campus and currently working on digital examination. Established a Center of Excellence in Retail, Media, Entertainment, and Communication with NSDC. With 40 companies. Selection for 7 years and guided for Dr. University, Bharatiya University. She was the recognized PhD supervisor for the following universities: Anna University, Chennai, Bharati University, Dr. NGR University, Chennai, Satyabama University, Chennai, Mother Teresa University, Kodaikanal, and St. Peter's University. Two books titled Computer Networks and Database Management. அதுதான் நான் இவ்வளவு நேரம் சொல்லிட்டு இருந்தேன் வாய்ஸ் வரல I'm happy to welcome you, ma'am. You can
Ye-
take over the session.
Yes, ma. So before taking over the session, I think there is a little disturbance. Am I audible?
Ma'am,
நான் பேசுறது கேக்குதா?
கேக்குது ma'am, கேக்குது ma'am.
கேக்குது. சரி, but there are participants trying to enter. You will take care of admitting them. Someone has to do it. Anyhow, I'll go ahead with the session. So going ahead with the topic that we are now today going to discuss quickly. One thing I would request the participants is to keep your end on your audio in mute. So whenever you want to talk, you can unmute and talk. Otherwise, there will be a lot of disturbance only for that. So I am just now today going to share with you few of my experiences in all these years regarding teaching learning. So all of us, most of us are teachers in today's audience that I'm seeing, and we all have done teaching and we know what is meant by teaching. The component that we have been slowly giving more importance is the learning part of it, or what we call it as the learners. இது வரைக்கும் teaching learning can I be bilingual, Tamil and English, or you want me to do it only in English? So here, but the point is, we are teachers. We were dominating the whole scenario, and the learners, we assumed the learners knew less than the teachers, and we tried to give them as much as possible. And the learners were fully dependent on the teachers for any knowledge. But in the scenario, the situation is not like that. Learners have access to a number of sources for information. Now, we are all familiar with data, information, knowledge. So information does not mean they have knowledge, but they have access to information. That is a problem because they are basically assuming that information is knowledge. So if we have a mismatch here, students have more access to information, and we are, as teachers, in a level where we need to really move forward, adapt, and change our pedagogy and how we approach the students. So there is going to be a huge shift. So today we'll quickly go through what is teaching, what is the purpose of it, what was the process in the traditional teaching method, and what is the new method that is necessary because of the change in scenario. So see, the three component we are now going to take. One is the teachers who have been there, my teachers, teachers. So that's a family. Then we have the learners, which is a different kind, that is changing. And then now we have a lot of development in what is called the technology, which is actually dominating the scenario of this teaching learning process. So in the three component combine பண்ணும்போது, we need to really look at teaching learning process in the light of these things. We will first go into what we know as the learners. The learners today are born after 2010, which means they are called generation alpha. When you look at me, I may belong to generation X. Generation X teaching generation alpha, you know the huge difference, that a generation alpha are all what we call it as digital natives. And on screen visible arka? Is my screen visible, ma? Can anyone give me an answer? Because otherwise I'll be assuming you are seeing my screen.
Yes, ma'am. The screen is visible, ma'am.
Okay. So we are talking about generation Z and students, children born after that. Quicker, they have a commandment on their own. They'll be always connected. Mobile they need computers to work, they need computers to play, and they are always comfortable with virtual friends, not the real friends who are by the side of it. So the problem is they are sort of multitasking people. They have their own new language. All that is making them a little different from the teachers. So what are we expecting from the student today, one, they adopt to technology faster than the teachers. They are very individualistic. Abdina, that's not very great because they are finding it difficult to be a team player. They have a strong opinion on everything. Other than the suggestions, advice, receive pandra mentality குறையிறது. They believe in career. The communication பாத்தீங்கன்னா அந்த web WhatsAppக்குனே ஒரு separate language is there, so that doesn't help them improve their expression or their interpersonal skills, vocabulary, or what you call it as a spelling. So all this is making them a little different from what we as teachers were. So they are living in a virtual world where they pay less attention to others. So this is the kind of people who are now going to be taught by us, the teachers. This is where we are coming. So the problem here is Generation X, that is people like us, we were just born before the digital revolution, and digital revolution happened only after 40, maybe we became 40 plus, and then we always had some resistance to change. Whereas Generation Y, avangaloda growing age, they started looking at digital revolution. But Generation Z and beyond, the Generation Alpha, they were all born in a digital world. So we are two different people, where Generation Z and Alpha are always at the disposal of digital technology and gadgets, and human relationship is a little less for them. So நம்மளோட premise என்னன்னா, இது மாதிரி ஒரு set of students who belong to a totally different generation, and it is just not the academics or the curriculum that needs to be taught. When I'm talking about this as a point, two things we need to really look out. One is the national education policy that has come up recently. Whether we are going to accept it or not, slowly it will come. So when you look at the national education policy, the skill and the attribute that an educator is supposed to be possessing is now different. How abdina, the communication is varying. The teachers are not expected to provide the curriculum. They are supposed to create critical thinking and problem solving ability in the student. So நம்ம கிளாஸ்ல போய் உட்கார்ந்துட்டு introduction கொடுத்துட்டு the teaching is not what is expected out of a teacher. We should teach them how to collaborate, how to work in a team, how to be curious and imaginative. Curiosity ன்னு வரும்போதே என்ன ப்ராப்ளம் வரும் அப்படின்னா, they may start asking questions. Whereas earlier generation, we never asked much questions with our teachers, and that was a norm then. Adhe mari, we need to be very agile and adaptable. There has to be a lot of self-regulation. There should be global stewardship. Earlier education was confined to a district or a state, and people never moved beyond the country. But now everybody works and studies only to go beyond the country. So the requirement change agum. So a lot of grit is required, resilience is required, a lot of vision for the future is required. This is the premise under which we are now going to discuss the teaching learning process. So learner has changed, education has changed. We as teachers, if we are not going to change, we cannot really serve the purpose, or we cannot provide quality education. So this is the premise. And when you look at it, we are moving from content-based education to outcome-based education. Nariya ketutom outcome-based program specific outcome, course outcome ketache. But the problem is, earlier the learners were passive. The teachers dominated the whole scenario. Examination driven இருந்தது. ஒரு syllabus இருக்கும், அதுக்கு ஒரு textbook specify பண்ணிடுவாங்க. Syllabus was rigid. Lectures were given, and we were asked to perform within a time frame. அதாவது ஒரு semester 90 days அப்படினா அதுக்குள்ளதான் நம்ம படிக்கணும். So all these parameters led to what is called rote learning. Whereas now there is no passive learning. The students are active. Assessment is not at the end of the semester. It should be an ongoing process. It is more learner-centric than teacher-centric. The lectures are to be innovative and creative. It is not within a particular time frame of a semester or a year, quarterly exam, half-yearly exam. Appadi kedaiyadu. It is working on flexible time frames, and we are not talking about completing a syllabus. In addition, more importance is given to critical thinking, reasoning, and how to take responsibility. So இது ஏன் அப்படின்னா இந்த situation is coming because of the new education policy, which is trying to make India a global knowledge superpower. The superpower நிறைய கேட்டாச்சு. இப்ப knowledge basely we are talking about global knowledge superpower. So when you look at the national education policy itself, structure மாறி போச்சு. School education structure has changed, college education structure has changed, number of years have changed. And more so, and the number of years we are now again moving from 3-year education to 4-year education. We are talking about multiple entry and exit points, which means you can join a 4-year program, take a certificate after 1 year. You can join it, leave after 2 years, leave after 3 years, and very flexible. And you can take some courses in a college and some courses online. Equivalence can be obtained, and you can have a store of academic bank of credits, we call. So இது எல்லாம் வரும்போது we have flexibility of subjects, we have flexibility of time, we have flexibility of space, and we also have a lot of emphasis on technology. So இப்ப இருக்கிற affiliation system stop ஆகி slowly every college will now become an autonomous institution. So here we will have to talk a lot about digital transformation if you really want to enhance your teaching learning ability. So look at what. First, let us take the education policy in toto. We have a multidisciplinary and holistic education. That is where flexibility of subjects will come. Accessibility, diversity, equity, and inclusion. When accessibility, diversity la varumbodhu, this is taking care of the global scenario where international students should join, international teachers should be there, people with different facilities available should be able to join a course. For example, engita internet irukke, I am able to do a course in 10 days. Somebody has got some other responsibility, part time padicha, they will be doing the same course in 20 days. So there comes the flexibility of time. So in the ரெண்டு scenario பாத்தீங்கன்னா, teachers are to be motivated, energized, and capable. They should be able to use technology, because we are talking about two extremes. One is global outreach, the other is promotion of Indian knowledge system. ரெண்டு எவ்வளோ ஒரு vast difference பார்க்கணும் நீங்க. Global outreach na we are leaving India. Promotion of Indian knowledge system na we are going back to the history. So this is the wide range of requirement that the education policy is defining, where we need to really look at an integrated higher education system. So the concept note here is, there is a transformation of education. It is moving from a teacher being assigned to a class to a scenario where teachers can be picked, the timings can be decided by the student. The student is allowed to frame his own course. You don't have to say, நீங்க இந்த subject தான் படிக்கணும். You are no longer in control. A student may want to learn a little of maths, a little of music, a little of dance, a little of pottery. ஒரு combination படிக்கும்போது, based on his interest, he designs his own course. Not a course like BSc computer science அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு இந்த subjects தான் படிப்பீங்கன்னு சொல்லாம, the student is allowed to frame his own courses. He can design his degree and he can study through any mode. In the mode of study ku vandu na next slide kaatren parunga. The mode of study is very very crucial, because earlier we had traditional mode of reading or teaching learning, where both the teacher and the taught were in the same room. That is called synchronous, and whatever the teacher had to say, the student received. But now the study can be through any mode. And earlier பாத்தீங்கன்னா examination, end semester examination to internal examination அப்படிதான் இருந்தது. Now we are moving to learning and exams on demand. I will learn when the student will learn whenever he or she wants. The student will take up an exam whenever he or she wants. So இதுதான் change in scenario. So what happens is, we are now moving from an education to educational technology, where we are talking about 5M they call it. Men, material, method, mission and media. இது எல்லாமே integrate ஆகி ஒரு systematic mannerல connect பண்ணும்போது you get what is called optimized learning. So if in the 5M use பண்ணி optimized learning போகும்போது we are talking about moving from traditional teaching where teacher will prepare lecture, deliver lecture, give assignments, homework and give an end semester examination. Whereas now we are now moving to what is called blended teaching. The teacher is only a facilitator. No longer chalk and talk is interesting. Videos are to be prepared. Slides are to be prepared. Learning by doing is to be encouraged. Group discussions where the students are active participants can be expected. So if in the traditional length we are moving to what you can say blended learning. Traditional learning is basically face-to-face learning where the teacher and the student are together. Whereas இப்ப நம்ம மூவ் பண்றது என்ன அப்படின்னா பிளெண்டட்ல டீச்சரும் ஸ்டூடெண்ட்டும் ஒரே நேரத்துல படிக்கலாம் which is synchronous, or டீச்சர் பாட்டுக்கு ஒரு கிளாஸ் எடுத்துட்டு போலாம், ஸ்டூடெண்ட் can take that lecture anytime he or she wants. That makes it asynchronous. There is another teaching learning called hybrid. Some of the classes can be face to face, some of them can be online. That becomes hybrid. There is another one called blended learning. Blended enna various media can be used for the teaching learning process. So the traditional learning mari ore classroom ore physical space la we don't go and sit. We don't have a blackboard. We take the chalk, the teacher writes and talks something, the lecturing mode, and the student hears. This is traditional mode, which is no longer possible. அப்ப இதுல என்ன advantage அப்படின்னா you can share educational and teaching information. There is great improvement in efficiency and effectiveness. It provides innovative ways of teaching, research and training, and establish proper links between schools and all relevant units அப்படின்னு சொல்றோம். So these are some of the advantages. The advantages basically is students are smarter, so personalized learning. And what is this personalized learning? I am a student. Now, whenever I want to learn, I will learn. Whatever I want to learn, I will learn. However I want to learn, I will learn. So this becomes personalized learning. I would like the participants to just differentiate it from the traditional learning. Traditional learning, நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஒரு கிளாஸ் ரூம்ல 30 பேர் இருப்பாங்க with different learning capability. There will be only one teacher. That teacher will teach, and whether you are smart or slow, the class will end in 40 minutes. And anybody who is a slow learner will have to approach the teacher later or go for a tuition. Whereas இப்ப அப்படி கிடையாது. We are now moved to what is called a personalized learning. The learner decides what to learn, when to learn, how much to learn, and how many times he wants to go back and forth to learn. So you can't, when I say personalized learning, there has to be flexibility in sub-content and flexibility in exam time. See, it is the advantage of a digital education where students they should be acquainted with digital technology and tools, but deeper involvement of teachers and parents because unless the parents and the teachers are involved, the next slide I will show you lots of disadvantages of this method. And this is supposed to be giving a better engagement rate because the student eppa mood irukko padikka varumbodhu he is engaged better. Make students more accountable. There is extensive learning opportunity and it motivates students. We are classifying it as advantages. But what are the major disadvantages? We always know we still have a risk about so many things online. So it is a potential risk of being online. Automatically teachers and parents should be very alert. It is not 100% reliable. It provides more opportunity for academic dishonesty. Google search becomes more in practice. So that becomes a dishonest way of doing things. and students have a lot of information. ஆனா எது தேவை எது தேவையில்லைன்னு அந்த செக்ரிகேட் பண்ணி, அதான் நம்ம சொல்லுவோம் தமிழ்ல வந்து பகுத்தறியற அந்த ஒரு சிச்சுவேஷன் ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ்க்கு கிடையாது at an early age. So that becomes a huge problem because we give them more information. The student does not know to gain knowledge from it. It also provides a distraction for students, and fundamentally it hurts the communication skill of the student. ஏன்னா நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா கூகுள்ல நீங்க ஒரு வேர்ட் அடிக்கும் போதே அது வந்து ஆட்டோ கரெக்ட் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கும், ஸ்பெல் கரெக்ட். இது மாதிரி ஒருத்தர் நடுவுல பண்ணிட்டே இருந்தா அவர் ஸ்கில் ஆஃப் பீயிங் குட் அட் vocabulary is lost. So these are some of the possible disadvantages we can say. So we need to be very careful when you integrate digital technology in your education. So now we will be seeing, we have defined the students. We have seen that digital technology is going to take over teaching and learning. So we are moving from face to face. அதாவது இந்த கிளாஸ்ல இந்த chalk and boardல இருந்து போட்டுட்டு we are now moving from face to face to personalized learning. These are two extremes where we can have some அதனாலதான் இந்த Venn diagram கொடுத்திருக்கோம். face to faceல என்ன வருது, remote learningல என்ன வருது, there are the intersection partல பாத்தீங்கன்னா those are things that are available in face to face and in fully online. So we are talking about three full things: face to face, fully online and remote. அதுக்கு நடுவுல நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா இந்த remote வந்து distance learning அதெல்லாம் போய்டும். We will not go into it. We are worried only about the intersection of face to face and fully online, where we are talking about blended learning and flipped classroom. Flipped classroom எப்படின்னா whatever is to be taught is given to the student prepares that at home on the day before, and they come to the class prepared with some knowledge, and it will be more of a discussion forum. So this is how your flipped classroom works. நம்ம இது ட்ரெடிஷனலா என்ன பண்ணுவோம், classல teach பண்ணிட்டு then the student will go home and learn. Now we are flipping the whole process. The student is told this is what you will have to come prepared before you take the class, so that student comes well informed and he starts interacting in the class. Whereas blended அப்படின்னு சொல்லி பார்த்தா it is not flipped. Blended is, it will be a mix of so many sources of information from which the student will learn. So we are now worried about what are we going to do to teach them. It very clearly says the teacher has to be very not that you will have to be tech savvy. It has become mandatory that the teacher knows to use the tools and technologies. So it is no longer someone being very tech savvy. It has become much a necessary feature. So we are talking about digital learning. The digital learning where things can be synchronous and asynchronous. Asynchronous learning is where the teachers and students are participating in the activity at the same time. அதாவது நான் இப்போ சொல்லும் போது என்னோட ஸ்டூடெண்ட் வந்து கேட்டுட்டு இருந்தா it becomes synchronous. Whereas asynchronous learning is the same material can be viewed by the student at different times, so it becomes asynchronous learning. So நம்ம traditional learning lende we have moved to synchronous mode, asynchronous mode, flipped classroom, blended classroom, fully remote classroom. So the learning process is changing very fast. So what are we doing here? We need the teacher. So let the teachers not think the teachers are not needed. Teachers are needed, which we call it as a human. Technology is needed. Blend them together and give it to the student. So why a teacher is needed? Teacher is a motivating factor. The teacher has to give the feedback. The teacher is relevant in terms of discipline and other human related matters, but the teacher is a facilitator. So what is the technology? Mobility irukku, self-study irukku, global reach irukku. Someone outside India can be made as the teacher. So that way there seems to be a lot of difference here, but the teacher is necessary, but the teacher's skill set will now has to change. இப்போ அதுல எங்க வருது அப்படின்னா நம்ம இது எல்லாமே we are talking in terms of the emphasis given to technology, by the government of India, saying we are now going to introduce what is called National Education Technology Forum. So, if the National Education Technology Forum, it is basically here to do certain things. That is, avangaloda function enna appdin paatha, the National Educational Technology Forum, which is a component of the National Education Policy, they will give technology based intervention to the state and the central government. They are supposed to build the intellectual and institutional capacities in educational technology. So, அது என்ன ஆகும் அப்படின்னா, teaching, they will lay down standards of content. You cannot simply prepare a PowerPoint and say this is digital teaching. No, they will lay down standards for content. They will introduce more technology to be used. Appo teachers they can't just learn one Google Classroom that came up during pandemic and say, oh, I am technology driven. No, tomorrow something else will come, some other technology will come. The teacher has to familiarize themselves with that. So they should change the pedagogy for both online, digital and classroom teaching learning. So, the standards will be made by the National Educational Technology Forum, and we will have to adhere to those standards. There should be authentic data. Nama kudukra data authentic irukano. Connectivity will be monitored. Emergent technologies will be introduced by the Ministry of Education, and the problem there is, teachers earlier had to learn new subjects. Now, in addition to learning new subjects, they should also keep themselves abreast with the latest technology. So that makes it a little, as we said in the NEP itself, we need motivated faculty, energized faculty. Enna energized na pudusa onnu kattukaradhukku they should have some energy. So we are now looking at teachers who should be motivated and energized. But இதுல எல்லாம் இருக்கு, டெக்னாலஜி பார்த்துட்டோம், ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் பார்த்துட்டோம், ஸ்டாஃப் என்ன பண்ணணும்னு சொல்லிட்டோம். பட் ஹியர் வாட் இஸ் மோர் இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் அண்ட் காசிங் கன்சர்ன் இஸ் the qualities of a teacher should still be maintained. Because I am not in the class, I am not with the student all the time, does not mean a teacher can be slackening on what you call it as values and qualities. Because நீங்க இதை பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, teacher curriculum நடத்துறதை தாண்டி teacher should be able to help the students think critically. நீங்க சொல்லி கொடுக்க கூடாது, ஸ்டூடெண்ட் என்ன லேர்ன் பண்ணணுமோ அதை தேடி எடுக்கணும். So you should help them to learn and not teach them. So it becomes a totally different role now, that the students have information, you tell them how to take the right information, how to gain knowledge from the right information. So the teacher's role is now changing, unless otherwise we are keeping ourselves energized and motivated, students are not going to look at us seriously. So that is where enhancing teaching, learning, and adala enna words potalam, simply put, a teacher has to be very, very positive. Teachers should not teach I can even say teachers should not teach the curriculum. Teachers are expected to create a learning environment where the curiosity of the student is kindled, the student is made to, or the student is taught to take the right decision. நீங்க லைஃப்ல பாத்தீங்கன்னா, even in our own family, we will have people who will say both sides, and ஒண்ணுதான் நடக்கும், நடந்த உடனே நான் தான் அப்பவே சொன்னேனே. That's the problem with the decision making skill. But now you should create students for a world where he should be able to be assertive. He should have the capacity to make decisions. The student should be able to be very resilient. Resilient and basic there are a lot of situations that keep changing in today's scenario. Now earlier nama engalukala irundha madri oru calm and definite situation kadaya. Suddenly corona vandaduna student ennane theriyama he sits at home, then we say you learn digitally. Then suddenly he goes from one place to another, things don't happen his way. So and the unexpected happenings la survive panni ஸ்ட்ராங்கா அதுல இருந்து மூவ் ஆன் பண்றதுக்கு பேர் we generally term it as resilience. We need to create students to be very resilient. இது மட்டும் கிடையாது, we are moving students from India to abroad. So அப்ப இந்த global change வரும்போது அந்த கல்ச்சரல் cross cultural activities இருக்கு இல்லையா, ஒரு what we eat, what they eat, how we start the morning, how they start the morning, what is our conversation language, what is their conversation language. அவங்கெல்லாம் வந்து they when we normally go outside India, we find they use a lot of polite words like thank you, sorry. இப்போ for example, let me say we book a Ola book பண்ண உடனே அது கண்டிப்பா வந்து ஒரு 15 நிமிஷம் அப்படின்னு காமிக்கும். The next vehicle it will be coming. And I have seen in my experience, if others have pleasant experiences, right? But if enna phone பண்ணிட்டு எப்ப வருவீங்க, ஏன் வருவீங்களா மாட்டீங்களா, this is how we start the conversation, because we feel I am paying the money, let me dictate terms to him. Whereas this is a little less outside our country, where you call them and they start the conversation by wishing them and then tell them, sir, I am here, are you coming, is it possible for you to come. Try this on your own as an individual. There will be a lot of pleasant things happening in a day to us. This is what education has to teach. You should teach them how to be polite, how to be using thank you, welcome, and the gratitude words. The teaching has to be all this, for which the teacher has to have a lot of value imbibed in them. For example, dress code வந்து டீச்சருக்கு அவசியமா அப்படின்னா, people like us will always say yes, it is essential, because a teacher is not a office goer. A teacher impacts the life of so many young minds. So that doesn't mean a teacher has to wear a sari or that's not what we are talking about. Say a pant shirt போட்டு டக்கின் பண்ணணும்னு சொல்லல, ஆனா how you need to dress, the grooming is very very important. எந்த அக்கேஷனுக்கு எப்படி groom பண்ணணும். A casual family occasion you can groom yourself anywhere, but if you are a teacher or if you are going for a formal function, you should know how to do it. So இதுல என்ன ப்ராப்ளம் வருதுன்னா, a teacher is always a teacher and there has to be purity in the personal life of the teacher also. So நமக்கு வந்து அது ஒரு கஷ்டம்னு இல்லை, நம்மளோட ரோல் வந்து ஒரு as much as a parent. Imagine if a parent does wrong things in front of the child, it's similar to that. So teachers also should be highly truthful. They should be righteous. They should have purity in personal life. This is something which is debatable. But my point of view in the qualities of a teacher, we should be pure in our personal life. We should be well groomed. And there has to be a lot of integration of body, mind, and intellect. The attitude of the teacher has to be very good. We should teach the students negotiation skills அப்படிங்கிறது. அதாவது ஒரு நெகோசியேஷன் ஸ்கில் அப்படிங்கிறது என்னன்னா, ஒரு ஆக்டிவிட்டி எடுத்துட்டு you are not able to go forward அப்படின்னா that student has not learned negotiation skills. So that has to be taught. We should be able to have an open mind. We should have a great sense of humor. There should be honesty. கொஞ்சம் வந்து இதுக்கும் டீச்சிங்க்கும் என்ன சம்பந்தம்னு நீங்க நினைக்கலாம், but unless we are in control of our mental well-being and we have some kind of a self-restricted discipline, whatever you try to teach will not reach the student. So for this to happen, the teacher's communication skills should be very very good. Be it in Tamil or English, preferred English, because we are still, our medium of instruction is English. But the pathetic thing is, grown-up individuals are not even able to communicate well in their mother tongue. என்ன சொல்ல வராங்கன்னே தெரியாம, there are a lot of fillers. So we need to have a strong communication skill. We should be proactive when it comes to problem solving. We should have a lot of leadership skills. Adhe mari, we should not judge somebody suddenly. We should be able to understand why somebody is doing something. So mix. This is the quality expected out of a teacher from time immemorial. Those things are not going to change, will not change. But additionally, namakku responsibility vandirukku. How do we learn new technology? How do we move from traditional teaching learning to blended learning? How do you assess the student? End semester exam is not enough. We should have exams for every unit or every learning, what you call it as course outcome. And the assessment need not be a paper pen exam. It can be any way of assessing. You can ask them questions and understand and grade them. You can ask them to present a seminar and grade them. There can be small quizzes, what you call it as surprise test. There can be group discussion, how student, appo or group discussion vecha adilenda student assess pannanum appadina, we as teachers should know how to do the group discussion, how to take them through the group discussion. How do you give equal opportunity to everybody to talk? Adhe mari, even there is something called the gaming way of assessing, block and tackle nu solluvaanga. You ask the student to talk about something for a minute. நம்ம அதாவது அந்த ஜஸ்ட் அ மினிட்னு ஒரு கேம் ஒன்று விளையாடுவோம். அதை வந்து நீங்க கிளாஸ்ல அசஸ்மெண்ட்டுக்கு யூஸ் பண்ணலாம். ஜஸ்ட் டெல் them, you talk something about this topic for a minute. If they have understood the topic, they know what to do. If there is a debate kind of a situation, ask them to talk for a minute and against for a minute. So you will know that there are all various ways of assessing the understanding of the student. It is no longer a 3-hour paper pen writing job that we are going to do as assessment. So these are something that really matters. We are moving from an active learner, passive learner to an active learner. We are moving from teacher oriented to learner oriented. So our teaching methods should now change. Lecture discussion, seminar, symposium, panel discussion, group discussion, tutorials, role play, integrated teaching, talking point sessions, workshops. இந்த மாதிரி ஏகப்பட்ட pedagogy பண்ணணுமே வழிய it can no longer be a teacher or what you call it as a lecture mode of teaching and learning. But எல்லா scenarioவும் மாறினாலும் the best way to control the students is by giving the best lectures. For you to give the best lectures, the teacher should have 3 competencies. One is the pedagogical competency. The other is the digital competency. And the third is very, very important, ethical competency. Idu ella irundaduna, the teacher is ready for competence in digital pedagogy. Simple ah potona, pedagogical na ungalku subject knowledge irukanum, ungalku expertise in teaching irukanum, and you should also have expertise in working life skills. We are no longer producing students for what we call it as job ready. We are now creating students to be life ready. When it comes for students to be life ready, they should be taught to view everything as a situation and not as something you like or you don't like. It is a situation. If it gives you happiness, okay. Otherwise, how are we going to handle it? How are we going to move forward? How are we making the student to think critically? How is it we are going to make the student do what is called creative thinking? How is the student going to do logical thinking given the data? What is called design thinking? So ஒரு ஸ்டூடெண்ட்டை வந்து நிறைய யோசிக்க வைக்கணுமே வெளிய நீங்க போயிட்டு ஒரு சிலபஸை கொடுத்துட்டு இது நான் டீச் பண்றேன் அப்படிங்கிறது is no longer going to work. You or we as teachers are supposed to introduce the students to various kinds of thinking, Give them enough information, ask them to learn. Don't teach them. Be there because you are there to ensure that they are learning it correctly and they are learning only what is required, and they should be able to differentiate between what is required and what is not required. So the total thing has changed. So you should have subject knowledge. You should know a number of teaching methods that makes it active. வாயால பேசிட்டே இருந்தா இப்ப நான் பண்ற மாதிரி பண்ணிட்டே இருந்தா students are not going to be interested. After 45 minutes their attention will reduce. Nowadays the attention span is still less. So we should make it more visual, more personalized, and make them life ready. அதுக்கு என்ன digital competence வேணும்? You should have knowledge of digital technology and ability to use it. ஏன்னா என்னை விட faster student வந்து he is able to use the technology. There's nothing wrong in it, but then the required skill நீங்க develop பண்ணணும். Not only that, every time there is a change in technology, we should be able to use it, adapt it. So that is very much required. Unless the teacher is digitally competent, it will be very difficult for the teacher to survive. You should understand the potential of digital technology. ஏன்னா ஐயோ எனக்கு யூஸ் பண்ண தெரியாது can no longer be an excuse. Utilize digital technology in teaching. That is how you can enhance the teaching learning process. If we as teachers want a outcome based, ஏன்னா நம்ம நேஷனல் எஜுகேஷன் பாலிசியில குவாலிட்டி சொல்லிட்டோம், குளோபல் ஸ்டாண்டர்ட் சொல்லிட்டோம், குளோபல் எஃபெக்டிவ் சொல்லிட்டோம், technology சொல்லிட்டோம். We have also talked about lots of access to digital information. So unless otherwise the teacher is digitally competent, we cannot survive in today's world, because we will have to clearly understand we are moving from traditional classroom structure to a personalized learning environment, which is totally on the other side of the spectrum. But நிறைய இடங்கள்ல இன்னும் classroom teaching பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம். This is not going to survive, and these children also will find it difficult to compete with others in the field. So teachers, please move and take your children towards a global standard and not deprive them by talking to them like the traditional method. Ethical competence, being aware of student equality, prioritizing the learning experience, and emphasizing on digital literacy. ரெண்டு இருக்கு. ஒன்னு வந்து அவங்க என்ன டிகிரி என்ரோல் பண்ணிருக்காங்களோ அதுக்கு படிக்கிறது ஒன்னு இருக்கு. இன்னொன்னு, you should be able to ensure that the digital literacy in general is there among the teachers and the students. So இங்க வந்து டீச்சர்ஸ்க்கு வேலை இருக்கு, சீனியர் டீச்சர்ஸ்க்கு ரோல் இருக்கு, மேனேஜ்மெண்ட் ஆல்சோ ஹேஸ் a role because it has to establish the infrastructure. And students who are coming from a deprived family or where they cannot afford all this, we should be able to create this digital literacy and support them with the sufficient technology so that the teaching learning process is made very, very effective. So this is something that I have just shared some of my views. It's not that I'm the authority in that. We have about 5-10 minutes. I am open to having alternate views or some questions if you want. Anyone would like to ask some questions?
Hello.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Kanakadurga from Stanley Engineering for Women, Hyderabad.
Yes, ma'am.
I need a small info rather as focus on especially the slow learners. Though we
Okay.
have some traditional or the flipped mode, different methods to address them, but still, we need to have an effective and prospective way to build them in a very shorter span into the track, along with our advanced learners.
Ma'am, I have only one point which may not be highly accepted and appreciated. If there are students who we are assuming we can do something wonderful to a slow learner and bring him up the ladder. It does not happen all times. See, there are certain limitations with students. So when you look at the admission itself, you will clearly see that some children are not interested in. That is where our education system is failing. We want everybody to become engineers. If not engineers, they will come to BCom, BSc. They want our children to become, all of them, by paying money, at least they will become doctors. But we are failing to understand the limitation of an individual, and we don't put him or her in a system where he can score. This is the reality. But as a parent, even if you ask me, I wouldn't like my son because he is good at doing artwork. I won't put him in an artwork college and say, let him do whatever you want. So in the scenario where we need to understand, so maybe sometimes there are students who, after any amount of trying to help them, may not rise above the bar. So that is one section of them. But most of them, on an average, repeatedly telling them something will help. But the problem there is repeatedly telling them something, you are going back to rote learning. So rote learning, given syllabus, last 5-year question paper, if he is able to do it, he scores, is the situation. But we are now moving from rote learning to something else. So when we move from that, we should give more options from which the student can select what is interesting for him. If he selects something interesting, he will automatically score. This is how the whole thing has to be viewed as an education person. But as a parent, I know what my concerns are. It's a very tricky situation that has to be handled. Anybody else?
Thank you, madam, for an excellent presentation. Thank you so much. Dear participants, thank you for your support and active participants. Now we have shared the feedback for e-certificate in chat box. Kindly fill the